Welcome to another episode of the In a Nutshell podcast. I'm your host, Sean Vowells, and I'm joined by Joe Meade. Tonight, Joe and I will recap the Big Ten championship game from Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis, Indiana. We had the Oregon Ducks coming in against Penn State. And Joe, while the result was not incredibly shocking with Oregon winning the game, I think the score was something that people didn't really see coming, and especially how much, on the Penn State side, they were able to hang in the game with a lot of points. Oregon wins 45-17, and like we thought, kind of, Oregon just proved to be too much for Penn State.
Yeah, Sean, 45-37 was not on my bingo card, I'll tell you that much. I thought, a lot of people are going to make fun of Penn State. A lot of people are going to make fun of the 1-15 James Franklin record against top five teams and the fact he hasn't beaten a top five team away from State College. But I didn't come away from the game really into that memery, to be quite honest with you. I was really impressed with Drew Aller. I thought, in spite of the two interceptions, that was his best game as Nittany Lion. I know the last interception, I attribute that to making more of a play. I don't think it was a good decision. I do think Aller wishes he had that one back, certainly. But I thought the balanced rushing attack between Katron Allen and Nick Singleton was fabulous. I thought Andy Kolodnicki as a play caller was extremely balanced. He incorporated Tyler Warren without having to have him carry the offense. He had the running backs do a lot of work. He had Bo Prabula on certain packages. And Aller himself was not afraid to run the ball. That's something we saw a little bit last year, even with their struggles. When Aller ran the ball confidently, their offense opened up a lot more dimensions, especially in their two biggest games that were losses last year against primarily Michigan. For Penn State. Sean, do I still have you?
Yeah, you're back. You're back.
Sean, I still have you?
Yep.
Yeah. One thing about Drew Aller when he runs is when he gets when he's able to run effectively, that opens up a whole new pathway for the offense. And we saw that briefly last year in their loss to Michigan. And when he fumbled in that game really turned on its head offensively for Penn State because they felt Drew was rattled. This was a game Drew did not get rattled in at all. He delivered. I mean, this was a highlight reel kind of game. I don't think he'll be in the NFL next year, but if he is, it would be because of this game.
Yeah, their offense showed a lot, to be honest. They have two losses in the year, Joe, and one of them's because they couldn't get enough going offensively. And then this one was they just couldn't get enough stops. Oregon really put on an absolute clinic. Dylan Gabriel, 283, 4 touchdowns, no turnovers. He had Jordan James with Noah Whittington on the ground and Tez Johnson, who, seems like a big problem at wide receiver, Joe. 11 catches for 181 and a touchdown. Oregon was able to spread out Penn State and really take it to them offensively. This was probably Oregon's cleanest game offensively all year, and it ended up that Penn State just couldn't really hang with them. But talk about this Oregon offense and how after a couple of blips there in the middle of the season, they're really rolling. 49 against Washington and now 45 against Penn State.
Well, I mean, I think regardless of what happened on Saturday, Dylan Gabriel was going to be invited to New York, and you saw why he was highly sought after in the portal, both after his departure from UCF and his departure from Oklahoma last year. The guy makes phenomenal throws on the money. Even some of the ones that were incompletions, I blamed more on his receivers. Tez Johnson, this was his game to completely go berserk. I thought they relied on Jordan James and Noah Whittington a lot, which I thought was okay. But once Dylan started to air it out, there was no stopping them. And at a certain point, I think the offense, the play calling and Dan Lanning just trusted Dylan Gabriel to coast them to a victory, which I'm going to be honest, Sean, I know the game was close, but we always thought Oregon was in control in this game. I think Penn State was always a play away from being a play away, as the score indicates. But Dylan Gabriel, he was sacked a few times, a credit to Penn State's pass rush, but that didn't faze him at all. He continued to move the pocket well. He continued to stand in there and deliver throws. there were too many fourth down conversions to count, to be honest with you. And they protected the ball, Sean. I mean, this is an offense that does it all right, and they can beat you in so many different ways. That's something we said all year. And Dylan Gabriel on the ground too. I think that's going to be explored even more so in the 12-team playoff. So this offense is looking as dangerous as ever, and probably is the hottest offense in all college football, to be quite honest, Sean.
Yeah, Joe, it didn't seem like any of it was fluky. It seemed like it was repeatable, consistent, and it always seemed like that Penn State was going to stop scoring before Oregon did, and that's what happened. I think we do need to give credit to Penn State. Oregon came rolling out of the gate. They were up 28-10 pretty early in the second quarter. Penn State scores the next two touchdowns to get it close at halftime, and then they score two touchdowns in the fourth quarter, and they do get the ball down a possession late in the game. Oregon, I guess you can say they let them hang around, but they kept scoring. They put this one just enough out of reach. And Joe, this team is rightfully deserving of the number one seed in the college football playoff. Now, we will. Oregon doesn't know their opponent yet. They'll be playing in the Rose Bowl against the winner of Ohio State and Tennessee. There'll be videos on those games closer to the date of kickoff, but and Penn State does have their matchup in the college football playoff too. But Joe, I think it was a very loose performance from both teams, knowing that they weren't done. I think we talked about that it wasn't sort of the leave it all out on the field game, but that also means it wasn't the your season's over if you don't make a play game. And ultimately, Aller and Penn State do come one possession short, but we probably think, Joe, it's a pretty accurate representation of both teams. Oregon's probably 7 to 8 points better than Penn State on a neutral, and they're the rightful winners of the Big Ten here in their first year in the conference.
Yeah, Sean, I think you said it perfectly. I think this was the first game Penn State ever played. I think this was the first time Penn State post 2016 played loose in a big game. I mean, I've never seen that kind of energy and kind of effort attitude when they were down and out, especially down 28-10, when they were down 15. My bad, shot cut
Yeah,
out.
you're
But
back.
no, yeah, but at the end of the day, I think Penn State needs to carry that mindset into the playoff. I do think we're not going to talk about it at length here. They have a more favorable path. And I think that will force them to tighten a few things up, which isn't a good thing, because if they play like this, Sean, I mean, I'll ask you this. Is that version of Penn State losing at home to Ohio State on November 2nd? I don't think so.
I don't think so either, Joe, and I think that performance against Oregon gets them into the national semifinals with relative ease. No disrespect to the teams that are on their schedule, but you get a team from Texas coming up to Happy Valley in December, and you get a Boise State on a true neutral. Look, I think a lot of people are looking past SMU, and that is dangerous, but Penn State should win by 10 plus against SMU. There will be another video on that, but I think Penn State is pretty pleased with how this game went. I think you definitely can shore some things up defensively. But Joe, you're not going to face an offense like Oregon unless you see them again, which is possible. You get a week plus to prepare for your college football playoff game, and things could be worse for Penn State despite losing this game.
1,000% shot. I think Penn State's still frustrated with the lack of silverware in the past 8 years in terms of no Big Ten title, but they have plenty of opportunity to get to their first ever CFP Final Four, and I think they'll be favored to do it. So definitely a lot still to play for Penn State, and for Oregon. You have to be really pleased, and I do think that bye game is going to be. And I do think that bye games could be a huge advantage for Oregon.
Yeah, and they will play in the Rose Bowl after Christmas. Plenty of time for them to fix any slight injuries that they have. Joe, one point about Penn State. Coordinator Kotelnicki was linked with the West Virginia job. It does not look like he's going to be going there now. It was likely that he would have continued in his post through the college football playoffs, but still, it looks like as of now that Penn State is holding off any advances for their coordinators. So I saw this tweet, and it is kind of true. If your coordinators are really good, they're going to be gone because they're going to get a head coaching job, and if they're really bad, they're going to be gone because they're going to be fired. But at least it looks like for now that Penn State is avoiding that with Andy Kotelnicki.
Yeah, Sean, I think that's huge for them, and especially we're seeing a lot of teams in the conference hire one new coach in Barry Odom, and others hiring new coordinators. Uh, some promoting from within, like Nebraska. But at the end of the day, Sean, this coaching carousel is far from over, as is the transfer portal. Already a few to mention. We're not going to talk about it in length, but Tyler Van Dyke enters the portal. Not that he was a Badger for long. Purdue hired UNLV's coach, formerly, famously the former Missouri coach in Barry Odom, and Michigan just hired the offensive coordinator from North Carolina in and geez, this is how big of a no name he is. I still have to remember Chip Lindsey. So who was there? Drake May was at Auburn, head coach at Troy. So the fact I'm speed rushing through these shows, we might have to dedicate a video per month just for that. But stay posted for that. And Sean, any final thoughts?
Nope, that's it. Be sure to look out for both these teams' previews. We are hoping to do a preview and a recap for all of the Big Ten games the rest of the way in college football. That includes the bowl games, various, and then, of course, the college football playoff games. So be sure to look out for those. They'll be out closer to those dates. But thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.